Hello everyone. So in this video we're going to understand the concept of what are commercial papers. So if you talk about commercial papers, specifically commercial papers are money market instruments, that is they enable different entities to borrow for a short term duration of time so that they can meet their working capital or operational requirements. So they are instruments which allow different entities such as corporates. For example, you could have Reliance issuing a commercial paper, or for example NBFCs. You could have, for example, Aditya Birla Finance Capital Limited, as well as select financial institutions, for example Export Import Bank of India. So basically commercial papers are mechanisms which are allowing different types of entities such as corporates, NBFCs, and also certain financial institutions to borrow for a short term duration of time so that they can meet their operational or working capital requirements. Now, an important thing in regards to commercial paper is that, like the certificate of deposits we discussed in the previous video, these are also unsecured, and by this we mean that any borrower, say a company which is issuing commercial paper to borrow funds, it does not need to provide any form of security, guarantee or collateral to the investor from which it is borrowing. So these are unsecured instruments like the certificate of deposits. As we just mentioned, these are instruments which allow different entities to meet their working capital requirement. So let's say there is a company ABC and that company wishes to buy some inventory for future sales, and that company has sold a certain amount of goods on credit, and that company knows that it's going to get payments from its customers in the future. So that company ABC could issue commercial paper so that it can buy the inventory it requires, and then it could pay for that commercial paper once it gets the payments in the future from its customers. Similarly, let's say there is a financial institution. For example, let's just take the example of Export Import Bank of India. Let's say Export Import Bank of India has a temporary cash shortage because it has given a large amount of loans to exporters and it has to pay its staff salaries because the month end is approaching. So Export Import Bank could also issue commercial paper and pay the salaries it has to of different individuals working in the organization. Now, a feature about commercial paper is that, like several money market instruments, for example treasury bills or cash management bills, commercial papers are also issued at a discount to face value. So let's say a company is issuing a commercial paper worth 5 lakh rupees. So if any investor is purchasing these commercial papers from that company, then that investor would, for example, at the moment be paying a lesser amount, for let's say for like 97,000 rupees. So this difference of 3,000 rupees is going to be the return for the investor. So commercial papers, because they are issued at a discount to face value, so any investor who buys these commercial papers buys them at a lower price and he gets the full face value on maturity. So these commercial papers, like discounted securities, do not pay any regular interest payments and they are issued at a discounted price and you get the full value on maturity. Now, if you talk about the tenure of these commercial papers, like the certificate of deposits which banks were issuing, the minimum duration should be 7 days and the maximum should be up to 1 year. Also, if you talk about the denominations, the minimum denomination should be 5 lakh and its multiple. So let's say if a company is issuing, then it can issue these commercial papers for either 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs and so on. Now this is different if you compare it to certificate of deposits, where the denominations were 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh and so on. So certificate of deposits are issued in denominations of 1 lakh and its multiples, but commercial papers are issued in denominations of 5 lakh and its multiples. Another important thing in regards to commercial paper is that any commercial paper which any entity is issuing, that entity needs to get that commercial paper rated by a credit rating agencies. So you have several credit rating agencies in India which are regulated by RBI. For example, you have CRISIL. So if let's say Reliance wants to issue a commercial paper to raise funds, then Reliance will have to get that commercial paper rated by CRISIL. What these credit rating agencies typically do is that they rate the financial worthiness, or they assess how financially sound a borrower is, and they accordingly assign a rating to that commercial paper which that borrower wants to issue in the market. Let's say there are two companies which want to issue or borrow money via commercial paper, and CRISIL rates those commercial papers. One gets a rating of A1 and one gets a rating of C. So any investor, if he wants to purchase commercial papers and if he sees these two companies, he will be able to make sense that if he were to lend funds to C1, then the risks are fairly low. But if we were to lend funds to company C2, then the risks are significantly higher because C2 commercial paper has a rating of C. So if funds are being lent to company C2, then there is a greater risk that C2 as a company may default on the money it has borrowed from its borrowers. So this mandatory credit rating agency rating helps a investor adequately assess the money which is being lent, and this is one of the ways in which RBI ensures that the investor interests are adequately protected. Finally, if a company is issuing a commercial paper, then the requirement is that that company should have a net worth of at least 4 crores. That is the difference between the assets and liabilities of that company should be at least 4 crores. And also that company should definitely have a sound financial standing. That is, the accounts of that companies should be classified as standard account, and that company should not have defaulted on earlier loan payments. So this is all we wanted to cover in context of commercial paper. If you did like this video, stay tuned to the playlist and check out the next video in regards to commercial bills. Thank you so much for watching.